Hey everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. I honestly couldn't have done this without your love, support, and constant encouragement. Every like, comment, and subscribe means a lot to me. Now let's keep this journey going. Our next target is 200 subscribers, and I know we can do it together. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow as a family. Thank you once again. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy are kidnapped and imprisoned aboard a mysterious ship, only for it to be destroyed in a sudden attack that scatters them across the sea. Separated and believing the worst, each brother is forced to survive alone while fighting toward the same goal, finding each other again. Through dangerous waters, unexpected allies, and relentless determination, their journey becomes a test of how far they'll go to reunite and return to the bond that defines them. Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is Return to Dawn by Fluffy Puppies. Respect to author.
Chapter 1. Waking up to pirates. Marco was having a stressful morning. Well, it was not supposed to be stressful, but it had to be ruined just because one of his ship brothers had to be the very cause of pestering him when he should be busy checking on his division. And, of course, the name of that very brother of his was Thatch. Damn it, Thatch, it's still too early for all this, yoy. The man beside Marco gave a grin, mischief glinting in his eyes as usual. Ah, come on, Marco. It'll be funny to watch. Also, you definitely need a break from work. I swear that at this rate you'll be a boring old man in no time. He hooked an arm over Marco's shoulders and gave a wink. Have some fun, buddy. The blond man rolled his eyes and removed his friend's arm off of him. You mean slacking off, yoy? No thanks. There are paperwork to do and make sure everyone is doing their work. He specifically emphasized the last part as he looked at the chef. Thatch just made a pout at that, and definitely not a cute one at all, then shrugged. Fine, but at least stay by my side as I watch the results of this greatest scheme of mine yet. It's exciting to see how Izo would react to it this time. Marco scoffed, really, yoy? Or is the reason of why you want me to be by your side is just so that I can play as a bodyguard and protect you from him? Then he walked away, and Thatch's silence was confirmation enough. Maybe I'll go and head off to Pops and stick with him to ease this headache. His thoughts were distracted by a scream and wail combined together, and he turned around to see Izo running on the deck, covering his face. Not too far from Marco, he could see Thatch trying to hold back his laughter. Unfortunately, Izo heard Thatch and whipped his head to his direction, the deadliest glare on his face, and Marco couldn't figure out how Izo even heard Thatch from such a far distance when he was literally at the other side of the ship from where they are on. Even if the anger wasn't direct to the first commander, Marco still felt chills when he watched Izo stomp his way towards his mischievous, prank-loving ship brother. His sisters and brothers make way for Izo, scared to even be near the cross-dressing man. Thatch, you bastard. Now that he was near enough, Marco could see Izo was soaking wet with what seemed to be water and glitter, as if the sparkly liquid was splashed above him, and that resulted to makeup running down his face. It made him look like some creepy ghost, or something. Izo hissed at Thatch and Marco could see the fire in his eyes. Very dangerous fire. How dare you ruin my makeup, Thatch? And what is this? Glitter. Just wait, till I get my hands on you. At least you look sparkly. Thatch yelped, but that just added to the flames as Izo gave an even darker glare. The ruined makeup just added the effect to how scary he was at the moment. Thatch made an eep sound and started running, Izo already after him. Come back here so that I can kill you. And just like that, both of them started running in circles around a mast, with the same mast the only thing that was protecting Thatch from Izo. Watching them made Marco sigh in exasperation since it felt like two kids being really rowdy and energetic too early in the morning. I need to calm down. Not wanting more of this nonsense, he strode off to the nearby railings and watched the sun finally lifting up from the horizon with eyes closed, the sky turning from sunrise pink to soft color blue. Marco sighed, enjoying the serene scene presented in front of him. As much as he loved his brothers and sisters, he wishes for some peace now and then, but, of course, he would never trade his siblings for anything in the world. Ever since he was placed under Whitebeard's care and joining his crew, family, every day had been an exciting thing to face as soon as the sun rises, indicating the start of a new day with his dear ones. And it feels like there will be more surprises to come in the near future, he thought as he slowly opened his eyes with a smile. Now, I believe it's time to go back to work. It was at that moment that something caught his eye on the waters below him. He turned his head down to check out on what it was, and his eyes widened by a fraction. He was about to shout out a command, or anything, for everyone to take notice of what was floating on the water, but he heard someone else already crying out their observation out to the crew on the lonely figure floating on the sea below. There's a child on the water. With those words, almost everyone on deck rushed over to the side of the boat, all eyes on the small figure. Marco may not be a telepath, but he could imagine the unspoken questions in everyone's minds. What was a kid doing there? What happened? Is he still alive? Marco started giving orders that they bring the kid to the ship, to which he saw Namor already diving down to retrieve the child. Return to Dawn. Luffy, where are you? Ace and Sabo ran over tree roots and through bushes as they searched high and low for their youngest brother, quite relieved when the animals that usually fight them decided they're not worth their time. At least it's not necessary to worry about being sidetracked to fight the animals before finding their brother. How did it lead to this? How did it lead to a missing Luffy once they took notice that the Strafoot boy was not by their side? Well, it all started when Luffy went off earlier to adventure, and his older brothers told him to not go off adventuring, yet when he could get lost easily without either of them by his side. Sabo suggested that he'd be a better choice than Ace, since Luffy would rather someone who could tolerate him than someone who would find every excuse to argue with the little boy and hit his head when he says something stupid. Hearing that, Ace tried to argue with the blonde that he's not that evil to his little brother. So the two continued their debate on who's the better brother to Luffy, to the point that when they finally cared to look at their side to ask for Luffy's opinion, they then noticed the absence of the little boy. So it led to the present time where they were searching everywhere for their brother. Luffy, Sabo called out as he jumps over a small ledge and avoids landing on a thorny bush. Luffy, come back, meat, Ace shout out at the top of his lungs. Meat, delicious, juicy meat, do you think that will work? Sabo asked as he swats a low branch away from him using his pipe. Ace shrugged even as he ran. It might be effective for all we know. After all, he does love meat too damn much, it's like the world revolves around it. As if to prove his point, a blur of red zoomed from the thick area of trees into Ace. When the older brother looked down to see Luffy squeezing his arms around his chest with a bone-crushing hug, and the little boy's face looked up to him with eyes sparkling with joy and drool escaping his lips. Meat, where's the meat? Upon hearing that, Ace smirked and glances at Sabo. See, just like summoning a demon from the depths of hell. Sabo rolled his eyes, but laughed a bit at that, causing Ace to laugh as well. The two brothers' behavior confused Luffy, who was still expecting his meat. So, Sabo asked after his laughing fit. Where were you, Luffy? Did you have a great adventure out there? Luffy made a big grin that filled up almost his whole face. It was great. Shishishi. Oh, and I also saw this ship passing by. It looked like it's heading towards the direction of Fuchsia Village, I think. Ace and Sabo exchanged a look with each other before Ace asked, were they pirates? At that, Luffy made a thoughtful look, but thinking too much about it made his face slowly turn red. Maybe. They had a Jolly Roger that looked weird and boring. Luffy stuck out his tongue at the last word. Again, Ace and Sabo exchanged a look and Sabo nodded to Luffy, walking up to his brother and patted his shoulder. Alright, Lou. Why don't you lead us to where you saw this ship, okay? And so they're off to follow Luffy, trying their best to keep up with their energetic brother's pace. Once they broke out of the line of trees, they found themselves on a cliffside that was facing the ocean. Luffy stood over the edge, making Ace scold him to not stand there unless the little brother wanted to go diving into the ocean and the sharp rocks below. So while the oldest of the brothers pulled Luffy back to have a safe distance from the edge, they tried to look at the direction Luffy was pointing at. When they finally focused on the object in the distance, they saw a ship that was on its way to where they believed was the direction the ports of Fuchsia Village should be in. They couldn't see clearly what was the print on the flag that was on the ship from a far distance, but they were able to guess that it was a pirate ship and not a marine vessel since there was an obvious black flag with the usual skull. Luffy turned to his brothers with wide eyes. Do you think they'd be like Shanks? The two brothers heard stories from the youngest about the great pirate Red Hair Shanks, as well as many praises for the man and the big promise that the two shared about the day when Luffy returns the hat to Shanks once he proved himself to be a great pirate. Though they were hoping the pirates coming to their island would be someone similar to Shanks, they have a bad feeling about this ship. We can't tell yet, Lou, Ace muttered and made eye contact to both of his brothers. We should try stopping by Fuchsia Village, maybe. Let's just hope they don't end up like Blue Jam. The two brothers nodded their heads in understanding, remembering how a month ago Blue Jam and his crew took away Sabo and gave him to his dad. It led to events that they were not fond of remembering, especially the fire. That very memory was horrible for both Ace and Luffy. Sabo was not there when the fire lit up Gray Terminal, but he was so panicked when he thought his brothers would never escape the fire. Though the next day, he was glad that he somehow bumped to Ace.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
The brothers were then overjoyed to be reunited again and went back to living in their tree house and messing with Dayton and the bandits. But there are those times where the memory of Blue Jam and the fire in Gray Terminal will haunt in their minds. They shrugged off the memories from their minds, not wanting to remember them at the moment. With that, all three of them started sprinting towards Fuchsia Village. Ace eyed his brothers as they ran, and a feeling of overprotectiveness surges in his heart then spread through his entire body. Ace is the eldest among the three, even if Sabo might be more mentally mature than Ace. I'm the eldest, he thought. I will protect them. Return to dawn. Ace woke up to muffled voices surrounding him, with nothing in his vision but darkness. At first, a wave of panic led him to a little heart attack from the confusion of why things were dark, but he's struck with a realization that his eyes were closed, so he slowly made them flutter open. So used to the darkness, he instantly regretted opening his eyes when light blinded him for a moment. Hey, I think the kid is waking up. He heard a voice to his side, so he tried to make his eyes be familiar with the light and slowly opened his eyes all the more. When his eyes finally focused, he then noticed a bunch of unfamiliar faces crowding around him. Hey, kid, one of them asked, concern tinged in their tone. You okay? Oi, give the kid some space, a lazy voice said somewhere nearby. When Ace finally realized the strangers were flocking around him, he quickly jumped up to his feet. He gave a roar that immediately made everyone nearby him back off, seeing that Ace was starting to make a fighting stance, ready to pounce on anyone who dares to come any closer to him. Many of them started speaking all at once. Look, kid, we mean you no harm. We're not gonna hurt you, boy. Easy there, tiger. Ace didn't listen to any word they said and continued to snarl at every one of them. Where am I? What happened? Where are my brothers? The last part was said in a growl, which, to his satisfaction, some of them flinched in fright when they heard it. Some had looks of surprise, probably surprised that a mere kid could even look that threatening. Before anything else could escalate into, maybe, a fight, one man from the crowd stepped forward and slowly walked closer to Ace. This particular man looked weird, what with his blonde hair on his head that oddly made him look like some kind of fruit, a pineapple, maybe, and had this lazy look in his eyes, but if Ace looked closely, he could notice details of a strong man that makes him feel like he should never let his guard on. No need to worry, brat, the man said, even his voice sounded laid back like his face. No one is going to hurt you, yoy. Don't make me repeat it again, Ace spat out, disregarding the man's words. Where am I? What happened? Where are my brothers? With patience of probably a saint, the man attempted to speak in a soothing voice. Calm down, yoy. You are currently aboard the Moby Dick, which means you are now on the ship of the Whitebeard pirates. My name is Marco, the 1st Division Commander and first mate here. Now I assure you that you do not need to panic and know we are not here to harm you, yoy. Shit, Ace cussed quietly to himself. He's on the Moby Dick. With the Whitebeard pirates. Whitebeard. Ace internally groaned, thinking about how he might have the worst luck in the entire world. If he recalled right, Whitebeard is from the same generation of his bastard of a father. Include the very fact that Whitebeard was also rivals with his father. He swore to himself that he'll never try to interact with any of the Whitebeards unless he has a death wish. But, alas, now he's here, on his father's rival ship. Great. Just great. He shoved off all thoughts that were bombarding into his head, then he turned to look at the pineapple head man straight into his eyes, listening to what the man had to say next. As for what happened, well, we don't know the whole story, yoy, but we can say that the ship you were probably on previously might have burned down, judging on some of the floating wood on the waters below which have evidence of being burned long ago. The ship was wrecked so much that nothing is left but just pieces of wood left on the water, again with bits of evidences on the water there. As for your brothers, I'm sorry, but none of us found any other bodies on the sea but yours, yoy. When we spotted you out floating on that drifting piece of wood, we took you in and tried to look around to find any other survivors. There were none, so far. There was silence between them, and Ace couldn't move. Letting those words sink into his mind, he felt despair slowly sinking into his heart. Ace felt a lump stuck in his throat, and possibly a sob that was threatening to escape. He raised up his hands up to either side of his head as he grabbed the locks of his hair and pulled at them. No. He felt the pirates around him gaze at him in pity. Ace hated it. He doesn't want to be pitied on. No. Luffy. Sabo. No. It happened so fast, the pirates barely shouted for him to stop when they watched in horror of Ace running towards the side of the ship and would have jumped off to the cold depths of the water, in hopes of finding his missing brothers, but the man, Marco, he introduced earlier, was quick to move and was there on time to place an arm around Ace's waist, refraining him from jumping. Stop it. Let go of me, Ace shouted as he struggled in Marco's grasp. They could still be out there. I have to find them. Luffy can't even swim, and Sabo. Brat, please calm down, Marco demanded, but had some gentleness to his words. We already checked, yoy. There's no one there. We sent one of us, a fishman, to go check just in case, but he found no one. Now don't go doing anything foolish, hey. Ace interrupted him when he chomped down his teeth on Marco's hand, but the man didn't lose his grip on the boy, which made Ace struggle more and growled at him. He kept thrashing around, kicking, punching, and biting on Marco. And was it just him, or did he see small blue flames dancing around the man's skin whenever he bit too hard on that very area? But Ace didn't care. No one separates him from his brothers. No, you could have missed them. You could have missed them. They could still be down there. I need to go find them. I need to. Ace didn't mean to do it, but he somehow was able to slip out of Marco's arms just a bit, but ended up moving too much that he found himself moving down and hitting his head on the railings with a big bump that everyone definitely heard, making all of them flinch at the sound. Shit. Ace heard Marco swear as he tried to ask Ace some questions, but the boy was slowly falling unconscious, darkness appearing at the corner of his eyes. Before he submitted himself to his mind to be in the land of dreams, he reached out his hand to the sea. Luffy. Sabo. I'm sorry. I'm the eldest, he recalled in his memories. I will protect them. He couldn't even protect his own brothers. Chapter 2. Rescued by hooded figures. You'll be brought back to your father, and maybe I'd get an extra tip if that makes him glad enough that I brought you to him, so you better not think of any funny ideas, kid. The boy found himself frowning at the mention of his father, though he just couldn't figure out why hearing about his father leaves a bad taste to his mouth. But he couldn't worry about that right now. There were bigger issues in mind. He had questions like, who was he? Where was he? What's his name? He tried to search deep in his mind of any memory of what might have happened to make him lose his memory, but he came up with nothing. So he tried to look around to check if his surroundings would jog up any memory buried in his brain. The people around were all dressed in suit and dresses of such flamboyant and sophisticated fashion that puts up an obvious sign that they're all people of high class. Something about that made the boy frown as well. For some reason, aside from being troubled of his lack of memories, he figured out by now that this was probably a dream. His guess about what he might be dreaming at the moment might be a memory of his. A memory of what, he was not sure. But at least it was a memory, so he could be glad for that. Stop that thief. His focus then shifted to what was in front of him. He watched two officers running after a boy about his age. Wait, what was his age? Who was desperately hugging some stuff in his arms. His eyes tried to look closer at the boy's face, but found it blurry, so he gave up on it. He was thinking of turning back his eyes to look at his surroundings, but a sudden feeling of overwhelming joy filled him up with no known reason, and his mouth started moving without thinking. Ace. The boy's eyes turned to his direction and he watched as the boy's eyes widened, as if he knew him. What the, Sabo? Sabo, he thought. Is that my name? He brushed off those thoughts. He'd have to figure that out later. As for the name the boy called him with, he decided to accept being called as Sabo for now until he can figure out his name. Like earlier, his body started moving according to the memory rather than his current thoughts. His eyes flickered to the man beside Sabo, then to the boy named Ace, sending him a wordless message. Ace nodded, getting whatever was the message Sabo was trying to give him. Sabo, with the pipe in his hand, which he still had no memory of how he got it in the first place, then immediately whacked the man on their groin, causing the man to yelp in pain. Sabo hissed as well, just imagining what it would feel if he were struck at that spot as well. Before the man could recover from the immense pain of probably no chances of ever making babies with any woman in the future, Ace then finished him off with a flying kick to the face. Sabo almost felt sorry for the man. Once the man fell to the ground with a big thud. The two officers were almost near the two children, shouting out to them to stay still and surrender themselves to them. With that, both he and Ace started running to wherever Ace was leading them. Good to see that you survived the fire, Ace. Sabo found himself saying as he ran. But may I ask, what are you doing here? And where's Luffy? Is he alright? Luffy? Who's Luffy? He thought. The name sounded familiar when he said it, but he still couldn't pull out any memory hidden in his mind's depths. Damn his unknown amnesia. Yeah, he is, Ace panted, sounding almost out of breath, but still kept his pace. He is with the bandits right now. But I'm worried about Dayton. So is that what those medical supplies are for? He pointed to the things Ace was carrying in his arms, being extra careful to not drop any of them.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Yes, she's injured from the battle we had with Blue Jam and when she helped me escape through the fire. So we must hurry to treat her. Sabo nodded, serious. Alright. The dream then made the colors start shifting to different places, and now he was in some kind of forest, with Ace standing beside him as both of them tried to help carry this huge woman wrapped in bandages. He tried to focus his eyes on their faces, but they seemed blurry and did nothing for him to try to see what they looked like. Why was his mind refusing to let him remember their faces anyway? Sabu. Aaaaaace. Dadan. A little boy cried out as he ran out of the house that the three of them were walking towards with Sabo and Ace struggling to drag the injured woman, whom Sabo was going to guess she was the Dayton woman that Ace mentioned in the first part of the dream. Sabo started worrying if the kid would suddenly jump on them, and it won't look pretty if that happens and make them drop the heavy weight on both Ace's and Sabo's shoulders, then crush them with it, but he heaved a sigh of relief when the little boy stopped a few steps away from them and just cried with big, fat tears rolling down his cheeks. Few others exited the house and walked up to them, exclaiming that they were so happy to see them all, doing Ace and Sabo a favor when they took Dayton from them, and relieving both boys once they have nothing heavy to carry. Sabo collapsed to the ground in exhaustion and Ace just stood there, but hunched over as he rested his hands on his knees, taking a deep breath. But before they could rest, the little boy took that opportunity to jump on them and hug both boys in his tight hug. And was it just Sabo or was he just imagining stuff when he thought the little boy's skin felt rubbery? Sabu. Aace. You're okay. Sabo heard Ace made a tch sound as he pulled away from the hug and hit the boy on the head, causing the little boy to cry out in pain. OOWWW. That hurt, meanie Ace. Shut up. And do you really think I'd die from a fight anyways? Ace scolded the boy with a harsh tone, but Sabo swore he heard a tad bit of fondness in his voice directed to the crying little boy. After all, who would watch over a weak crybaby like you? You won't be able to survive that long. I'm not weak. And stop calling me a crybaby. The boy then turned to Sabo with that ugly crying face, though, like Ace, his face was blurry in Sabo's vision as well. Sabo. Ace is being mean. Sabo sighs, exasperated, but something about this feels so familiar and nostalgic. Before he could say something to maybe stop the two from arguing, he felt the same rubbery arms wrap around him and Ace, trapping them back in its tight embrace. Ace was going to complain again, but stopped when the little boy buried his face to Sabo and Ace's shoulders, his tears running down their arms. But, even if Ace hurts me, even if Sabo left us. He then looked up at them with those teary eyes. I miss my brothers so much. Something slammed real hard on Sabo's heart upon hearing that, and he would love to try figuring out what it was, but he stopped when he saw that Ace had the same expression he was making too. The little boy then put back his face on their shoulders. Please don't ever leave me. I don't wanna be alone. Sabo didn't know what to say, and found little comfort to see Ace was the same with him as well. The three just stayed there, sitting on the ground as the youngest of the three sobbed against them, holding on to them as if he was afraid they'd disappear from him if he does not hold on to them tight enough. The others and the injured woman were nowhere to be found and were probably in the house, maybe to provide the three boys with the needed privacy. It felt like hours dragged on as they all sat there in silence, but Ace finally fidgeted a bit before bringing his arms to wrap the little boy and Sabo closer to him, having an unreadable expression, but if one were to look closely, they could see warmth in those dark silver eyes. Don't worry, Lou, we'll never leave you, we promise. This caused the little boy to sob louder than before, but it sounded more happy than sad. Sabo smiled at this as he also joined in the hug around the crying little boy. A feeling, love, filled his chest as he looked at the two boys. It felt nice. It was like how one would feel when they come back home to their family after a tiring day. They do feel familiar, Sabo thought. I just wish I could remember. Then, instantly, a darkness consumed everything around them, swallowing every tree and plant until there was nothing left behind. When all of their surroundings were gone, it was replaced with fire all around them. Sabo looked around, an expression of horror etched on his face. What? Sabo, help us. He turned to look for the other two boys but found out they weren't by his side anymore. Now that he thought of it, the voices sounded like it was coming from the area where there were huge waves of fire. Before he could run over to the flames, he can't worry right now about how scorching hot it is. He found himself being swallowed up by the ground, making him fall into the never-ending void, hearing the cries of the two boys fade from the distance. Return to dawn. Dragon needed some fresh air, so Eva should understand if he suddenly disappeared for a while to calm his stressed mind by strolling around the town of the small island they are in. They stopped by the island they're currently staying on due to them needing to restock on their supplies as they will take a 2-day trip back to their base. The island was small compared to other islands in the area, but they were relieved that they were docked to an island that had civilization despite how small the town was. So they found 2 inns for all of them to stay in. Since the inn was little in size like its town, one half of the group had to stay in a different inn from the others. There are times the choice of separation from others would make them weak and be made easily as prey to their enemies, but the advantage would be that if one group were to be in trouble, the other that wasn't caught could help from the outside to save their captured comrades. Though to be cautious and avoid such a scenario, Dragon made sure to remind all of them to never let their guard down and look out for each other. Aside from that, Dragon preferred having the company of less people rather than overcrowding himself with too many all in one place, even if he should get used to big crowds by now, especially when using the crowds to blend in or escape the enemies. During his walk down the streets of the little town, he passed by a little boy who ran up to his father. The kid whined about being tired, and the father, being caring to his loving son, picked him up and placed him on his shoulders. Dragon watched as the father chuckled and the boy break into a small fit of giggles while riding. Watching the bonding moment of father and son made him think about his own son, even if he never got to meet his son face to face. He did not regret his decision. Sure, there were those times he wished to meet his son that his wife put effort to be let born to this world, but there's nothing he can do. He was a wanted man, and he let his son be safe and free by never meeting him than letting the world scorn him just because he shared the same blood with Dragon. Garp, you better make sure he is growing fine, he silently thought as he passed by the father and son. Knowing his own father, he could already imagine Garp beating the ever-loving crap out of his son to force his ideals in his head and training him to be a Marine. Dragon gave a slight frown, remembering his time with his own father. To avoid memories of his crazy parent, he shrugged off the memories and walked over to the docks. Dragon was planning on standing by the docks and letting the sea breeze do its magic and soothe him in ways he did not understand, even if it was a bit stormy tonight and the wind was a tad bit stronger, but before he could do just that, his eyes then caught sight of something washed up to the shore. Since it was night time, it was too dark to distinguish features and looked no more than a dark lump on the sand. Waves lightly washed over him, then retracting back to the ocean to where it belonged. It could be some loot that used to belong on a ship that got wrecked at sea. Or someone dumped whatever they owned to the waters in hopes of getting rid of it. He was deciding whether or not to check the lump out when lightning struck the sky for a second, illuminating everything and revealing what the lump was, and it definitely was not a something but actually a someone. A castaway. The man wondered to himself as he started brisk walking his way to the small form that made him guess must be a child. When he reached the person, he could tell that he was right at his guess of the figure being a child as he stared down at a boy with scorch marks marking his clothes, making Dragon wonder whether the ship the boy came from caught on fire. As gently as he could, he knelt down and scooped him up into his arms, and when he was near enough, Dragon felt his eyes widen slightly, but not much. This town smells worse than Grey Terminal. Little hands, sweaty but with a firm strength, grabbed for his cloak. This boy, if I stay here, I'll never be free. The kid in front of him cried, not minding the snot and the big fat tears rolling down his cheeks. I'm ashamed of being born a noble. The very boy who declared those words was the same boy that Dragon was holding in his arms at that very moment. Now that he got a good look, he could see that there was a nasty burn at the left side of his face, and not only that but a portion of the left side of his body was burned with the burned clothes revealing the burns. It definitely looked serious. Quickly, he headed off to the direction of the inn he was staying in, hoping their medic was still awake. Sure enough, when he reached to the inn and knocked on the door where he recalled where Eva and the medic would sleep in, the door opened quietly to reveal the two of them, still wearing their cloaks as if they never bothered taking them off ever since reaching the inn. Eva was questioning Dragon on what was wrong when Dragon pulled back his cloak to reveal the burned boy in his arms that was hidden underneath the cloth. The medic then understood what Dragon wanted and immediately, but gently as she can, grabbed for the boy and rushed into the room to look her medical supplies. Later on, she was hovering over the boy as she did her best to treat him and keeping him alive. While she worked, Dragon sat by the other side of the bed the kid was on, and he might have imagined it, but what surprised him a bit was when he heard the boy mumble a few words in his sleep. Luffy. Ace. No. Luffy. Dragon wondered. Luffy, does he know Luffy? How did this boy know Luffy? There were questions Dragon wanted to know, but decided they could be answered when the boy wakes up, so he decided to shelve those thoughts for later and help with whatever the medic needed assistance on. Return to dawn. There, somewhere in his dreams, were some memories. Answers to his past. I will become a pirate, defeat everyone in my way, and become known across the whole world. I'm gonna be the pirate king. With this, starting today, we're brothers. But like the leaves in the fall season, they fell and were carried away by the wind before he could reach out for them. Return to dawn. Somewhere on an island where not many travel to, in order to explore and tell stories about, clouds gather to that very place, as if it was a magnet that attracted the clouds from nearby the area. It looked as if there was a slight chance of an upcoming thunderstorm, so all sea creature near the area steer away from that island. There on the oddly colored sands of the place, a lone boy laid face down on the said sands of the beach. His clothes gave evidences of being burnt a bit some time ago. If one were to pass by him, some might think he was probably dead, but if they leaned closely, they could hear the audible snore the boy gave. The clouds continued to gather, sending a bit of wind to the island, cooling the sleeping boy and blowing on the strafut that had its string around the little boy's neck. Chapter 3, The Boy and the Tiger. He had a meat dream. Yes, he had one of the meatiest dreams he ever had in his life. In the dream, there was a world of meat that consisted of meat people. There were 3 types of meat people in the world. There were the meat citizens who live however they want on the meatlands. Then there were the meat pirates who sail through the meat sea to be free and experience meaty adventures. Lastly, there were the meat marines who look after the meat citizens and capture the meat pirates to bring justice to this world. The one who sailed through those very seas was the great meat pirate, Monkey D. Luffy, who swore he will become the meat king and find one meat. After trials he faced with his strong meat crew, years and years he's been getting stronger and stronger to finally achieve his dream of finding one meat. And that day finally came. But as he was about to open the treasure chest where one meat was known to be held in, a darkness consumed him and his crew, and Luffy watched in horror as the chest of the one meat was also swallowed by the darkness. So Luffy woke up screaming for his treasure, but when he looked around he saw that he was not in the wonderful world of meat, but on an island he's not familiar of. Glancing around, he found out that he was washed up to the shores of a strange island where the trees had a mix of light blue leaves and pink leaves, with what seemed to be 6-petal flowers growing from the colorful trees showing off their navy blue color against the soft color of the leaves, making them stand out with their dark color. The grass around the trees looked normal at least, with bright colored flowers of many colors growing everywhere. When he looked down, Luffy saw that even the sand by the shore didn't look normal. It was white sand, but there seemed to be light blue particles as well, as if the sand could come in two colors. What a weird island. Wonder what made it this way. Luffy grins. It's a mystery island. And when there's a mystery island, time for adventure. Shishishi. Luffy got up and brushed the sand off of his knees, clothes, then his hands. After dusting the weird sand away, his thoughts wandered off to his brothers. He turned to look at the sea behind him, sea breeze brushing his face, making his dark hair fly around in a little dance. Ace. Sabo. The boy mumbled, corners of his lips falling down and recalling what happened. He remembered just crying out for his brothers as the ship burned down, as well as struggling to not fall over the drifting piece of wood that saved him, a devil fruit user, from drowning. He kept shouting for his brothers until his voice cracked and his throat turned sore, and eventually passed out from possibly exhaustion caused by the turn of events and maybe the seawater as well. So when he woke up, he found himself not with his brothers but on a strange island, with possibly no one else but him on it. Alone. Luffy wrapped his arms around him, attempting to hug himself, the cool wind not being the cause for that very action. He missed his brothers. That very moment, he then heard a growl. He placed a hand on his stomach, the boy staring at the hungry beast inside him. "I'm hungry," he moaned. Before any other thoughts, and maybe plans of catching any animal he could find on the island, another growl echoed from within the forest. And it definitely didn't sound like it came from him. Luffy turned around to come face to face with a pink and blue tiger-like creature, baring its fangs at Luffy with a hungry glint in its eyes. Luffy stilled, staring at the beast. Oh, apparently he's not the only hungry beast here. With that, Luffy screamed as he ran as fast as he could from the hungry tiger creature. Return to Dawn. Law hated surprises. When one person starts getting used to their daily routine that they had no choice but to adapt to, it should be sensible that they wouldn't want something new, which then will end up adding to the ever-growing pile of the things they need to worry about. So when that something new happened to Law's sad and miserable life, he just knew then and there that he had have enough of this world. He remembered of the days that he had to be on the run after Corazone's death, and at the same time, avoid from gaining attention as he hid away, in hopes that he won't be found out by a possible spy from Doflamingo, the man he still to this day despised today, and the man who murdered Corazon. Currently, he was still on the run. He decided that he will gather a crew, but that will happen in the near future when he's older and with enough experience both with sailing the seas and with the Ope no Mi's abilities, the very devil fruit he worked hard to get for Law. He shook away those thoughts. Now was not a good time to throw himself to the same rabbit hole of guilt and sadness. What he needed to focus at the moment is to see what kind of island he landed on, and how to survive on it until he could find a way to the next island. Of course, even in this bad scenario of being stuck on an unknown island, the world must have hated him since they added one more thing to his problems. Help me. Law turned around and saw at that very moment a little boy, his guess was that he was 8 years old, burst out from the bushes with one of the weirdly colored tigers of this island chasing after him. The boy's eyes landed on Law and had the emotions of relief and joy fill in his white eyes. He then ran towards Law and quickly hid behind him, tugging at the ragged cloak Law wore around him. Law raised an eyebrow at the kid before turning his eyes back at the threat that now noticed his presence, not hard for the animal to ignore Law anyway, since the creature's original target was now hiding behind him. This made the teen groan in annoyance. Oh well, at least this may be counted as additional practice to play around with his devil fruit powers. He quickly grabbed for his notichi that was by the rock he was sitting on earlier before the disturbance, then he raised up his hand, room. As practiced, a blue filter started to cover around them, but since he was not mastered with how far he could improve his powers, the size of the filter was just only enough to cover around the two boys and the tiger. It's not much, but it's enough for now for the current situation. Right when the tiger pounced, Law was ready. He slashed with his sword. Return to Dawn. For sure, Luffy thought he was going to die. He remembered scenarios as similar as this one back home in Dawn Island, but the difference was that the Tiger Lord was definitely bigger than the pink tiger creature here, and it was Sabo and Ace who protected him rather than a strange boy. Though the Tiger Lord and the creature are different in size, the latter seemed like it was strong enough to almost be as strong as the Tiger Lord back home. When all was about to end without Luffy ever having the chance to meet his brothers, as he'll be in his grave by the time they come for him, the most bizarre but coolest thing ever happened, and he was so grateful that he did not have his eyes closed shut when it did happen. The moment the strange boy slashed his sword at the tiger creature, the beast was then cut into half. The body was cleanly cut into two parts, and no blood spilled on the ground. But other than those details, what made Luffy have stars in his eyes that very moment was when the two parts started moving, looking like it never felt the pain of being sliced into half and is struggling to get up when it was missing the other half of the body. Awesome, Luffy shouted as he faced the boy. He secretly decided he wanted to be friends with the boy. The boy in front of him scoffed and rested his sword thingy on his shoulder. He just stared at the struggling beast. From the appearance of that creature, you must have so much bad luck to gain the attention of the island's conductor tiger. He was silent for a while, contemplating something, before he spoke up again. Ah, well, maybe you do have some luck of a devil instead. Most of the time people can never survive an encounter with a conductor tiger, but seeing you're not dead, nor are you even scathed in any way, then it must be, indeed, the luck of a devil. Shishishi. Luffy gave out his signature laugh. You're funny, Tora guy. The teen raised an eyebrow at him. Tora. The little boy gave another laugh. Because you beat that tiger. Luffy started running around the strange boy, all the while doing his weird little dance. Tora guy. Tora guy. Tora guy. After a short while, Luffy then abruptly stopped and turned his head to look at the boy with wide eyes. Nay, Tora guy, who are you? Luffy watched as the boy gave him an annoyed look, muttering underneath his breath, and Luffy heard a few words such as, annoying brat, and, so slow. Again, this made Luffy laugh. He was starting to like this boy. He was so funny. The boy sort of reminded him a bit of the times when he was still newly friends with Ace, when Ace finally allowed Luffy to finally hang out with him and Sabo. The reminder of his absent brothers made Luffy pout. He missed his them. Though even if he was sad, he still managed to grin to himself when a certain thought came to mind. I hope I can be friends with Tora guy in the meantime. With determination for a new companion, he gave a toothy grin to his soon-to-be friend. Yes, he will make him his friend. Even better. Maybe he can be his nakama of when he becomes a cool pirate captain someday. Dark Eyes then turned to the Strafut boy with a look that might have scared normal little children, but not Luffy. Trafalgar Law, the teen answered Luffy's question. My name is Trafalgar Law. Luffy tilted his head, eyebrows pinched together in concentration. Tura, Fulaga, Trafagal. The annoyed teen watched as Luffy struggled much in trying to pronounce his name. After a good minute of the little boy butchering up his name more, the teen gave a deep sigh of annoyance. Trafalgar. Falgar. It's not hard to say, Strafutya. If it's too much for your dumb mind to figure out how to pronounce it, then you may call me, Law. But Luffy didn't listen to a word of what he said, so the teen just got further irked by him. Tragar. Faltragar. Tora. Torao. Luffy then beamed, as if he achieved something. Torao. Nice to meet you, Torao. Shishishi. The boy, who Luffy now dubbed him as Torao, glared at him. No. Just call me Law, Strafutya. But the boy was, again, not listening, and proceeded to dance around him again. Torao. 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 He continued to run around in circles around Torao, and then land on the ground on his back, legs and arms splayed out as he laid there in a fit of giggles. Yay. Torao is going to be my friend. No I'm not. Torao yelled. Shishishi, fine. Then you'll be my nakama. How's that even better? It's okay, Torao. I'll be captain, then we can sail the seas for adventure. Ah, by the way, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, and I'm going to be the Pirate King. He watched Torao sigh in exasperation and pinched the bridge of his nose, head lowered with his fluffy hat. What a cool hat. Luffy added, covering his view on his new friend's eyes. Luffy hoped that his new friend was not getting sick from how he's reacting. Wouldn't be good if his new friend was sick. Well, Luffy know that we are not friends. Nor ever am I going to hang out with a dumb little kid like you, who, may I add, is weak enough to not last long on this island. If you're lucky enough, you might have a good 5 minutes before death finds its way to you. The Strafut boy gave his meanest glare he could muster up, though it looked like a full-blown pout instead. I'm not weak. My punch is like a pistol. I can beat anyone with it. Torao scoffed at that. Really now? Yeah. Luffy then moved to face away from the teen, back facing him as he made a stance to get ready. I'll show you. I will hit that tree, and it will shatter to pieces. Just wait and see. With that, Luffy started spinning his arm, preparing that special pistol punch. Gomu Gomu no. Then he threw the punch. Pistol. With his rubber abilities, the fist went flying. Unfortunately, as what Ace and Sabo mentioned to him before, Luffy still had the problem of bad aiming, so Luffy watched as his rubber fist not hit the target and aimed at a rock that's beside the tree instead. It somehow made his fist bounce back towards him, but Luffy was able to dodge it this time. Thump. After a while when his fist finally retracted back, Luffy made another pout. I'll get the aiming right someday. But did you see it, Torao? My punch is really like a pistol. It's awesome, right? He turned around to check the reaction of his friend. Maybe Torao will see the move is cool, but was confused to see him sleeping on the ground behind him. His hat was knocked off his head and was lying on the ground a small distance away from Luffy. A bruise was evident on his forehead, which made it look like he was punched by someone, but Luffy knew for sure that there was no one else except him and Torao. Maybe it was a ghost. Ghost people sound interesting. Luffy crossed his arms at the sleeping body of his friend. Hey, why are you sleeping, Torao? My attack wasn't that boring. No response from his friend, though. He went over to the unconscious boy, and started prodding him with a stick that was lying down beside him. Torao. Still no response. Luffy puffed up his cheeks, disappointed that his friend fell asleep from watching him demonstrate his pistol attack. Was it really that boring? Or maybe Torao didn't appreciate those kinds of attacks. Well, whether he liked it or not, Luffy was still going to keep training and master that attack until perfection. Maybe by the time he improved on the attack, then he can show it to Torao again. He'll make sure he won't be sleeping when he sees it by then. The little boy didn't last long in his foul mood when his nose finally took notice of the smell of meat. He looked around and saw the campfire that Terao probably set up before he met Luffy. It turned out Terao must have been cooking meat a while ago before the tiger incident. With a grin, he started walking over to his friend's lunch. Meat. He left his friend behind, in favor of having his favorite food. And that was the start of a beautiful friendship. Chapter 4, Problems and More Problem. Ace would love to say he had a great battle with his demon father's rival. It would be an interesting story to share to his brothers once he reunites with them, especially Luffy. He could imagine the rubber boy with stars in his eyes as he tells him what happened, and it's this kind of story that he knows his little brother enjoy. Ace would love to tell them about how he fought them bravely, missing death so many times, and at the end of it all he came out victorious with the ship burning behind him. That would be awesome. Unfortunately, if he did tell them that, he'd be one big liar. In a predicament that he didn't expect himself to be in, apparently the notorious pirates, under the command of one of the strongest pirate captain of the seas, was, of all things they could have done to him, taking care of him and feeding him. What? At this point, he doesn't know if he's either in the underworld with whatever devil was residing there, or if someone was playing a terribly bad joke on him. Hey, brat, are you going to eat or what, yoy? Ace glared at the man, Marco, right, before turning his head back to his food. His bandaged hand clenched into a fist on his lap. Earlier, Ace woke up in the ship's infirmary, where he found himself treated for the small wounds, which he forgot he had them due to the explosion on the ship that he and his brothers were trapped in. At least it was small wounds. He could have been damaged greatly, but at least it was just minor scratches instead. After waking up, that Marco man came to the infirmary to escort him to the galley for him to have lunch. It turned out that he accidentally hit his head just this morning and that he was unconscious for a while, but woke up near lunchtime. Ace didn't like the man, and thought he could get away from following orders from him, but lost the fight when both of them heard his stomach protest and started to demand for food. So, yeah, he's here, currently eating with the pirates. Don't talk to me, Ace grumbled. Marco shrugged and went back to enjoying his food, letting the silence wash over them, even if it was really loud around them. Apparently he was right to imagine that pirates are such loud human beings. You know, I feel bad for your food there. Seriously, what did it do to be at the receiving end of your anger? Ace turned around to see what seemed to be a chef. The chef's clothes was a dead giveaway, with some weird hairstyle. He was giving a friendly smile. His friendliness, Ace hated it. He was having this kind of paranoia that they might treat him nice for now, but once he lets his guard down they'll stab him in the back. He must not let that happen. His brothers needed him. Maybe, once upon a time, he wouldn't mind allowing his fire be snuffed out easily like that since his life is just crap. He would have allowed it to save him the pain, and to finally give him his peace from all the hurt he receives from the world around him on a daily basis. But, one day, he met Sabo, he met Luffy, and that changed his purpose, the purpose to live. He will not die. He will live, so that he will see to it that his brothers can be protected from the cruel world they live in. He will see Sabo free. He will see Luffy smile. He will not die. So, with that, he tried sending his darkest glare at the chef, and had this tad bit twisted satisfaction of seeing the man flinch at that. Good. That should be a good warning for the man that he should never mess with him. After that, he went back to his food, and he does admit the food was real good, unconsciously lifting a corner of his lips at how tasty it was. That's good. You seem to enjoy the food. He turned back to see that the chef man did not leave yet. In fact, he decided to sit by Ace's other side. Now he was trapped in between the annoying first mate and the weird chef guy. Ace inwardly groaned at this. It didn't help, at all, that the chef guy was giving this goofy smile that was starting to annoy Ace. The man leaned forward and raised up his hand to the boy. Well, I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm Thatch. You are. Ace growled at him like the wild animal he is, and went back to giving no mercy on the chunk of meat on his plate. So good. His name is Ace, yoy. Instantly, Ace swiveled his head to Marco's direction and, of course, glare at the blonde. Seriously, he's been glaring so much in a short amount of time. But when he turned to look at this Thatch person, his goofy smile seemed to turn even goofier, if that's even possible. Good to see you, Ace. I didn't get to greet you earlier since I was busy in the kitchen making all these barbarians lunch. Marco scoffed softly, and also trying to avoid being shot to death by Izo, yoy. Ace heard Thatch audibly gulp at that. Yeah, I'm still trying to avoid going near to Izo for that. Marco rolled his eyes at the chef. Well, yoy, you could have avoided that if you just stopped being an idiot. Tuning out their conversation that was slowly starting turned into a petty argument, Ace took his chance to scan the room, trying to observe everyone interact with each other in a merry way. He saw three men where they were acting really buddy to each other. One of them, the shortest one, probably said something stupid, which was paired up with a stupid grin. Whatever he said earned him a punch on the head from the tallest one who looked like he was scolding him, but the fire in his eyes wasn't dangerous. Even if he looked pissed at the shortest man, he had some warmth in his eyes despite the glaring. The third man that sat beside them decided to try breaking up the fight, but he was also trying his best to not laugh at them. Watching the three of them mingle in whatever they were arguing about made Ace think of his brothers. That made him feel down. He missed his brothers, and was deep in his worries of whether Luffy and Sabo are alright. Especially Luffy, since he was a devil fruit user who could have drowned as soon as he landed in the waters. Ace bit his lips to stop that train of thought. No, Luffy is not dead. Ace hoped for that possibility. No, he believes that Luffy is alright. That kid had luck on his side no matter what dangerous situation he is in. But even if he tried to reassure himself that Luffy might have survived, he still worries for his little brother. Luffy, you better have survived that, or else I'll go to wherever your soul is and beat the ever-loving shit out of you for dying. With new determination filling his veins, a new promise to himself that he will find a way to find his brothers, he devoured his food. Damn, the food was good. Return to dawn. Law did not know how long he was out, but when he opened his eyes, he saw that the sun was no longer high up on the sky and was dipping down ever slowly to the horizon, signaling that it was late afternoon and won't be long before evening. He groaned inwardly, knowing how he has to prepare for the night, since he figured out since the first day on the island of how there are certain kinds of animals that tend to be aggressive when it's dark. First and foremost, food is needed. Recalling that he was in the middle of cooking some meat during lunchtime hours ago, he hoped that it was not burned during his time while he was unconscious. Well, obviously it must be burned by now. He turned his head to stare at the direction of where he set up a fire and his food earlier in the day, but he was surprised to see that there was no meat at all. Probably an animal. He pondered on that thought. I could name a few animals bold enough to come near to this site to steal from me. Not only did he find out that his food was now gone, but he also noticed something else. Unfortunately, this also confirmed his memories that he did, in fact, meet an obnoxious child by the name Monkey D. Luffy. Laid down on him, horizontally across his abdomen, was the very child with his limbs splayed out and a bubble sticking out of his nose as he snored happily on Law. Either due to the heat or the sight of the brat, Law felt an annoying headache pound in his head. Law proceeded to trying to push the boy off him, Screw being gentle with him. Luffy, ya, get off me. The little boy groaned as he landed on the ground beside Law, plopping there and creating a tiny cloud of dust to fly up in the air. Luffy opened his eyes, then with those wide eyes he turned to look up at Law, who was getting up to dust off the dirt on his pants and ragged cloak. After that, Law looked down to see the boy give his signature wide smile. Good morning, Tarao. Law huffed, turning away from him. Good noon, you mean. He looked up to the sky, seeing the blue color slowly turn to shades of orange and red. Though, from the looks of it, it might be starting to turn into evening. At that, the teen heard a growl. He went back to looking at the boy, and see him lay his small hands to his stomach. Law watched Luffy pout, puffing air into those round cheeks of his. Nay, Tarao, I'm hungry. Rolling his eyes, he started walking away from him and walked towards his campfire. Not my fault. He only heard the little boy get up from the ground and shuffle towards Law, to which he gave Luffy a glare, but either the boy didn't mind the glare or he's just plain stupid to not notice. Tarao, what about we go and adventure? But I'm still hungry, so maybe we should go hunting. Do you know how to hunt, Tarao? I used to go hunting along with my brothers back home. We always hunt together. Also, my favorite is crocodile meat. Oh, but Ace and Sabo always scold me every time I get eaten by the crocodile. The meat was tasty though, so it was worth it. I really love meat. How about you, Tarao? By now, he was pretty sure this little shit was the cause of his headache. Well, maybe it would have been not that annoying back then, when everything was not ruined by this disgusting world. He recalled of how back in those happy days of normalcy, he would sit there patiently with a medical book in hand as he listened to his little sister talk. She'd talk, and talk, and talk, about anything and everything, with eyes of love and curiosity for this world, right before that very world took her away. How dare they took her away, how dare they took Lammy away. She didn't deserve it, his parents didn't deserve it, everyone didn't deserve it, and when everyone was gone, he's somehow alive. Why'd he survive? Why is he still alive? Why is he not with his family? Why is he not with Lammy? Ever since that day, every child he came across with who showed innocence, love, and the same amount of curiosity for the world makes Law feel sick. Every child with such beauty in them should have been Lammy. His little sister should be alive, talking to Law of more things that she loves of the world, even if the world was cruel to her. He couldn't take it. He couldn't stand the sight of those children. And now, here's one child that reminded him a bit of Lammy, the curiosity for this horrible world, as if they weren't aware of its terrors. Law grinded his teeth together. No, this annoying little brat is not Lammy. Will never be. Only Lammy deserved that happiness. Before his thoughts could get even darker, the boy, the bane of his existence at the moment, spoke up, disturbing him from thinking further ideas. Tarao, I'm hungry, Luffy whined. Let's go get food already. Law scoffed. Luffy, yeah, it's not that easy to do. This island is slightly more dangerous than any other normal islands. This place attracts many storm clouds than normal. And it seems that the clouds seem to enjoy coming over to this island during nighttime, judging from my observation of this place when it's evening. Luffy tilted his head, confused. Law ignored him in favor of explaining more of the island. Clouds gather at night since there are these kinds of trees that only grow on this island. They attract these storm clouds, but mostly at night. The storm clouds that come at daytime is only due to the usual direction of the wind blowing them here. For these trees, I am not quite sure if I ever read them up in a book on botany, but I just call them conductor trees. All of them grow in a certain area in the heart of this island, which is why I avoid that place as much as possible, both during day and at night. Did you understand all that, Luffy? Yeah. Luffy was silent, eyebrows pinched together and face tinted a bit red, probably from thinking. Law considered that as Luffy trying his best to listen, so he continued. Now, even if I do admit I'm safe so far from avoiding this part of the island, it does not mean I'm safe as well from the storms. If one were to stay on this island, they must always check the sky. If not a cloud is seen, then I choose that very moment to hunt and gather resources. Once I see even a tiny bit of a cloud in the sky, I head off to a safe place. I have a second hideout in a cave nearby for when that happens. That's not the only danger you face when staying on this island. There are also the animals to watch out for. They've adapted to what this island offers to the point that they are all lightning proof. They basically can roam around during the storms, so there can be possibilities of them casually strolling over to the cave, so I have to make sure I'm always on guard when that does happen. Remember that tiger creature that attacked you? I named it the conductor tiger, and encountered it on my first week on this island, but I luckily did enough to scare it away from the cave during the storm that time. In the end of that lengthy explanation, he glanced over to the little boy who, during the explanation, had his face grow redder and redder. Law raised an eyebrow at this, but not a moment later did he see Luffy then grin and hit the side of his fist on an open palm. So, this is a mystery island. With mystery trees, and mystery animals. Got it. Law groaned and pinched the bridge of his nose. No, he'll not kill the boy. No, he will not. Luffy, yeah, did you even listen to a thing I said? Luffy just held his grin. Yup, you said this is a mystery island, so it's a mystery island then. Luffy's stomach then growled. I'm hungry. Meat. Let's go find dinner. Apparently, Luffy has such short attention span. No. Law will not strangle this stupid little shit. He will not kill this little shit as well. A roar echoed in the forest. Both boys turned to see that there was a bear a distance away from them, and this creature shared the same colors of the conductor tiger earlier in the day. It was going around the forest probably trying to look for food. After a while of the animal searching around, it started running away from their area. But even as the bear was slowly disappearing into the trees, Law saw Luffy starting to drool. Turao, I want the mystery bear. We must capture it. Law frowned at him, and how, Luffy, yeah, are we going to do just that? It's getting away. I suggest we just go ahead to the traps I set up for conductor rabbits earlier. Of course, Law should know by now that Luffy never listened to anything that Law tells him. So when he saw the boy definitely ignoring him, he heaved a sigh. And also stiffened once Luffy quickly stepped to pass by Law, to stand behind Law, then make both his hands stretch towards the two trees a short distance away in front of them. Law observed the boy's strange abilities and guessed he must have a devil fruit. He wanted to question him on which fruit did he eat, but he shouldn't worry about that at the moment. The question he wanted to ask right now was, Luffy, yeah, what the hell are you doing? Again, of course, Luffy didn't answer, but the wide mischievous on his face made Law worry much. Gomu no. Luffy, yeah, whatever are you doing? But he didn't finish that when Luffy then, like a slingshot, shot them straight into the air, heading towards the direction of where the conductor bear ran off to. Law felt like he left behind his heart, and maybe his soul, as he paled at the very thought of how the hell are they going to land. As for Luffy, he was just busy laughing in the air beside him like the little crazy brat he is. At this rate, they'd definitely catch up with the creature and have their dinner before it gets dark. But that's beside the point. Luffy, yeah, I'll kill you after this. He's only answered with more laughter. Return to dawn. This is bad. No joke. The three brothers, after some effort and a bit of Luffy falling down several times, they were able to climb up to the roof of Party's bar and look down at the chaos happening below. Apparently, as soon as the pirates docked their ship by the ports of Fuchsia, they then proceeded to terrorize the town, scaring the poor people to handing over their goodies and resources. These pirates definitely didn't come here for a lovely chat, or even just to party like how Luffy said Shanks would always do that on his stay in this village. Upon watching the pirates forcing people to give up their stuff, just because they can, made Ace and Sabo's blood boil. Just not them, but Luffy voiced out to them that he does not like them at all and that they definitely are not as cool as Shanks. The two eldest understood how Luffy felt. After all, they knew that the little boy dislikes bullies. Yahahaha. That's right, you land dwellers. A loud guy, probably the captain, stood in the middle of the crowd which was his crew, standing with such a confident and smug smile on his face. Just a friendly reminder that no one should even think of fighting back or else. He then snapped his fingers to his men, which they reacted immediately as they started dragging someone towards their captain's feet. The three brothers stared at the struggling citizen with horrified expressions. A familiar dark green hair was in a mess, missing the bandana that usually is placed there to keep them back. The citizen had a troubled expression, and also had a bit of bruises on them, as if they were beaten a bit earlier before they were held hostage by the bastard captain's crew. The citizen was Makino. Makino. Luffy whined, eyes starting to water a bit as he watched the kind-hearted woman be treated roughly by pirates. Shush, Luffy. Ace scolded his brother, but he also felt troubled by the sight too. They'll hear you. The three continued watching as Makino kept struggling even as she was then lifted up from the ground by the captain, pulling her up by grabbing her hair. You're pretty actually, the captain eyes her, and she flinched from what he said. Maybe I could keep you, so that you can entertain me and my crew here. He turned to his crew with the ugliest smirk on his face. What do you say, boys? The crew cheered loudly. Everyone felt their eyes grow wide at those words. Everybody loved Makino. Everybody didn't want them to taint her. How dare that they said such things. Then something happened. Ace knew that when something bad happens it's mostly because of Luffy and his skill. Is it even called a skill? In being able to be a magnet for all trouble. But what he didn't expect was that it wasn't Luffy this time. In fact, it was him. Whoa. Ace slipped from where he was on the roof and fell to the ground, woof, gaining attention from everyone. The captain, a short distance from him, raised an eyebrow at him. What's this? He could hear Makino gasp when she saw him. Not just her, but from where he was lying down on the ground, he could see the panicked expressions on his brothers' faces as they're still on the roof, watching Ace from where they are. Boy, how dare you interrupt me? Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is Return to Dawn by Fluffy Puppies. Chapter 5, Promises. It was now the next morning since the Whitebeards found a little boy floating on the waters beside their ship. The day was beautiful, with no sign so far of an incoming storm. Not a marine ship was in sight and all was peaceful, and Marco could not find himself complaining about it. Oh, speaking of peaceful. What do you mean that I can't leave? My brothers are out there. I need to go ahead and find them. Yeah, he thought too soon. Marco watched as the kid bravely, or was it stubbornly, stood up to Whitebeard, anger lighting the fire in his eyes, not even caring that he was talking back to a man even most Marines are scared of. The commander agreed that this boy has spunk, but maybe he should be concerned about that instead, since sometimes stubbornness can be the end of some people. Though, since the person he was talking to was his pops, then Marco knows that Ace wasn't going to be killed for that. After all, Marco knew his pops the best than most of his ship siblings. Brat, I understand that you want to find your brothers, but you're currently still healing, Whitebeard said in a patient tone even if some of Marco's siblings seemed already irked at the boy for speaking rudely to their captain. And you can't be able to search for them alone. I promise we will help you find them after you're in a better state than that. You can trust us for that. Ace growled at that. What do you mean, we? I don't need your help. Why do you care anyways? You don't even know them, so why help? I am capable of finding my own brothers. But you're in no good condition. Shut up. This made almost everyone raise their weapons, prepared to protect their captain if the boy decided to make a move. Ace noticed this and attempted to rub his temples to try calming down his anger. Look, old man, he started. Just, give me a ship, and I won't be here anymore. Give me a ship and I won't do anything funny to you or your crew. Give me a ship, and I'll be on my merry fucking way, looking for my brothers. Is that hard to understand? Marco shook his head. This boy definitely was rude. Using such language speaking to pops, even if they are pirates and cussing is a norm for most of them, Marco definitely knows a child shouldn't be talking like that, especially to their elders. But when he looked up at his captain, the man showed no evidence of being affected by the boy's rudeness, but he did give Ace a gentle look. Brat, again, I understand you're in a hurry, but letting you go now will be reckless. Tell me, do you even know where they are? Ace was silent at that. Are you even capable of reading the unpredictable weather of Grand Line? At that, Ace was still silent. As expected. I know you don't trust us, but please know we will keep our promise that as soon as you're healed there, I will send a search party for your brothers, and you may even join to help as well. Ace bit his bottom lip, conflicted with whatever thoughts were in his mind. But, why even help me? You're pirates, not saints, or even those damn Marines either. Marco watched as his pops leaned back into his chair, his giant hand lifted to hold his chin with a thoughtful expression. Good question, brat, he then grinned. Maybe it's because something about you is interesting. I wonder why. At those words, Marco watched Ace flinch at that, but then kept his face the same, so not many but Marco and Whitebeard was able to see that. Wonder why he reacted like that, yoy. After a long stretch of silence from the boy, he finally gave in and sighed. Fine, but then his glare returned. But if you do anything funny, I will fight you. Amused, Whitebeard's grin just grew wider. Gururara, your year's too early to fight me, brat. Signaling the end of the conversation, Ace stomped away from Whitebeard, heading over to the infirmary, since he was strictly instructed by the nurses that he come back as soon as he was done with his conversation with the captain. Even if Ace decided to agree with Whitebeard's terms, his tone did sound like he was planning something. That's what the 1st Division commander thinks, but maybe he's just imagining stuff and that, in truth, Ace will indeed stay behaved until he fully recovers. Since the talk was over, Marco watched the rest of the crew disperse and head back to their duties, or even go back to slacking off. Marco then walked over to stand by his pop's chair. His father didn't show any sign of seeing his first mate walk over to him as his eyes were following Ace, a smile still on his face. You know, I think I like the brat. Still not even sure of why. Marco rolled his eyes at that, but he smiled anyways. Please don't tell me you'll be asking him to join the crew soon, yoi. Gururara. Such a tempting thought there. Of course, his father wanted to keep the child. But Marco wasn't complaining. Who knows? Maybe the kid would someday open up to them, and maybe even grow into a great man who can bear his father's symbol. He hoped that that very day will come soon. Return to Dawn. Ace. Luffy. The 3 of us have to set out to sea someday. We'll get out of the country and be free. Let's get stronger, and become pirates. His voice. I will become a pirate, defeat everyone in my way, and become known across the whole world. That will be proof that I live. That voice. I'm gonna be the pirate king. A child's voice. Have you heard? When you exchange sake cups, you become brothers. With this, starting today, we're brothers. Brothers. Why, can't he remember? Why, I want to remember. Suddenly, there were muffled sounds in the darkness. Should be better. We should, recover. He, injured, probably, burning ship. He, wake up soon. What's going on? Return to Dawn. Sabo woke up feeling down. His mind seemed to enjoy tormenting him by constantly reminding the amnesiac that he lacks any memory about him or his past. He could imagine his mind as this big bully, smirking as he held his memories in one hand, high enough for it to be out of reach for Sabo. Oh ho, you want your memories back? He imagined it to say to him. Well, too bad. You're never going to get it. Yeah, he's pissed at that. Well, he did not have time to ponder much about that because when he looked up, he saw a face staring right back at him. So you're up, huh? A kid, who was either a year older than Sabo maybe, or same age with him, stared back at Sabo with a scowl to his face. At first, Sabo thought the scowl was directed to him, but for some reason he had this feeling that the scowl was just part of the boy, and that he was not actually angry at all. So you finally got up, the boy said. You looked terrible when they found you. They guessed you were on some burning ship or something. But, hey, at least you're feeling better now, right? Sabo tilted his head. He was injured. What happened? Tuning out the kid's voice on whatever he was saying, Sabo turned to face the only window of the room and he could see that he was on the sea. Must be on a ship, he thought as he raised his hand to his head to adjust his hat. His hand only felt his curly hair instead. But that was not what got him frowning to himself. What happened? There was something that his body remembered, but not his mind. His hand recalled a habit of probably adjusting a hat on his head, but Sabo couldn't remember if he had a hat before. Well, it was something little, but at least he found out something about himself, despite it being such a minor detail that's connected to his memories. Anyways, the voice of the kid he was currently ignoring cut through his thoughts. They also said something about the leader, Dragon something, would want to talk to you when you get up. Sabo nodded and turned to look away. Okay, thank you, Ray. Sabo looked ready to ignore him again. From the corner of his eyes, he saw the boy gave him a real frown, this time that matched with his usual angry expression. That's not my name, idiot. Were you even listening earlier while I was talking? You ignored me, didn't you? That very moment, Sabo heard the door of the room slowly open, and he moved his head to look around and see who had entered in the room. What he saw was a man, from his guess, who dressed up his best to look like a woman. The man also had a huge head with makeup on his face, as well as a purple afro. Sabo wondered if the hair was either a wig or if that's really his hair. Hello, boy, feeling better already? Sabo gave a nod. I heard I need to speak with someone as soon as I'm up. The afro man looked a bit surprised before giving a big smile to him. Why, yes indeed, boy. I'll lead you to Dragon. Return to Dawn. As instructed, he saw Eva walking with the little boy of Hightown following him from behind. The boy was still in the middle of healing, evidence shown by the display of all those bandages wrapped around him, especially his left side of his face where Dragon saw it burnt when he first found him. The boy looked around the ship, studying it and observing his comrades doing their duty on the ship as they sailed back to their secret base, eyes calculating and studying them. Dragon was amused with the kid's actions, knowing he'd make a good spy, or maybe even a revolutionary if he decides to join. That'd be interesting. Once the kid was just a few feet away from Dragon, Eva said something to the boy then turned to walk away, leaving him and Dragon to have some privacy. Dragon turned to go back to his previous position of staring at the sea and beyond the horizon. The kid understood him without Dragon needing to be vocal about it, so the kid took his place to stand beside the man, staring at the sea as well. Do you remember what happened to you? Dragon went straight to the point. He's not a man for beating around the bush when wanting to gain information, unless if it was really necessary for him to do so. Must be such a traumatizing experience for a kid to be the target of a celestial dragon's fury. The boy turned to look up at the man, but instead of either fear or fury at the memory of the celestial dragon shooting down his ship mercilessly, all he saw in that boy's expression was confusion. What? Dragon raised an eyebrow at him. Didn't the boy remember at all? Even if it was such a horrible memory for a mere child to experience, he was pretty sure he wouldn't forget such a thing. At that very moment, a small theory popped up in the man's head, and he frowned at this in a small bit of concern. He would want to test out if his theory was right. Boy, do you remember anything? Anything at all? At that question, he confirmed his theory correct when he saw that lost look on the boy's face. I'm sorry, sir, the boy answered softly, I don't remember a thing sadly. I don't even remember who I am. Dragon simply gave a small nod to this, understanding that the boy was inwardly conflicted with his discovery that he was now an amnesiac. But, the man watched as the boy looked up at him with worry and anger in his eyes, small fists clenched by his sides. I may not remember anything, but, one thing's for sure, I have this thought in my head that tells me that I don't want to go back. My mind keeps telling me that I don't want to go back to my parents. The boy looked down, and Dragon watched as his fists kept shaking a bit, but the shaking wasn't too obvious, as if the boy didn't want to show how vulnerable he looked at that very moment. Abusive parents. Dragon inwardly thought, but shrugged off the incoming questions that was now invading his mind concerning the boy. Alright, we won't take you back then. He saw the boy slump down his tense shoulders in relief. But what do you want to do from now on? He watched as the boy then tense again, probably realizing just then what should he do now that he was not going back. I don't know. The both of them lapsed into a silence as they stared back at the sea, the sun resting just above the horizon, signaling that the day was about to end, telling everyone to wrap up for the day, and do whatever they want to do before it all ends and leads to the next day of the future. Well, Dragon voiced out, breaking the silence and making the boy turn back to look at him. What I can tell you of what happened to you is that you were on this small fishing ship. I'm not completely certain of what you were thinking of that time, but you looked like you were trying to sail away, to be free. To adventure. That, I'm not sure, but as you were sailing away on that small ship, you crossed paths with a ship of a celestial dragon. From the corner of his eyes, he saw some of his comrades glancing his way, probably a bit surprised of how he was more vocal to the child. But that was understandable since he's doing all this in order to help the child by providing information. He then looked at the boy. Do you have a memory that should help you understand of what is a celestial dragon, boy? At that, the boy shook his head. As I thought, celestial dragons are these noble figures that hold so much power that even they could order the government and the Marines to do whatever they want. So when you crossed paths with that celestial dragon, he got furious and shot your boat down, not caring if it was a child on board. The boy grew pale at that, but then anger flashed through his face. That's horrible. Alas, that is the world we live in today, Dragon gravely nodded. They do things that make them less human, and others suffer due to their arrogance and selfishness. What's more is that the Marines, who are supposed to watch and protect the people, have no position to say no to the celestial dragons and follow their orders. Thus, we currently have a world that you may consider as disgusting. He paused to let that information sink in the boy's mind. The man was surprised that a kid his age could handle that much of that very kind of information. After a minute of silence, he then continued. However, there are some who want to do something to stop all the suffering, pain, and corruption of the world. Some of us want to take action and destroy this terrible system they built. Some want to create a better world where the new generation does not ever learn such cruelty in such an early age. A group who made it their goal to make this dream into a reality. With those words, the boy asked with interested eyes, what's the name of this group? Dragon gave a small grin. The revolutionaries. They went back to silence, but it didn't feel uncomfortable at all. They stayed like that when the sun finally started to hide behind the horizon, showing the end of the day. But there will be a new day after this, with whatever the future has for them, a future that's made once a choice is decided before it all began. Then, the boy said in a soft voice, but it was clear enough for Dragon to not mishear the words. I want to be a revolutionary. That very choice was then made. The future was now finally decided. Then you are welcome to join. Return to Dawn. Sabo. Give Sabo back. Don't do it, Sabo. I'll do whatever you ask of me. I'll live just as you tell me to, so, don't hurt these two. That's all I ask. Hey, don't go. We were gonna share our freedom together, remember? Sabo. Don't go. Sabo. 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 But he left anyway. I'm sorry. Return to Dawn. Ace was watching the waves rock the ship gently, as well as the sky as the sun was now leaving its last rays on the vast blue up on high as it hid behind the horizon. The sunset looked beautiful, ending the day with such a beautiful mood. Ace rested his chin on his arms, getting lost in his thoughts as he thought about his brothers. Every second that passed was full of worry in his heart and mind as he imagined every worst-case scenarios that they may be in. Though he was feeling pessimistic, he was still hopeful that they survived and are somewhere out there. He will find them. He won't let the world separate them. He won't lose any of them. Not Luffy. Not Sabo. They will be together again. I won't fail as the eldest brother ever again. Ace turned back to watch the night sky, the sun finally completely hidden behind the horizon, making the stars finally sparkle on the beautiful dark blue of night. They looked beautiful, making Ace reminisce for those nights the three of them chose to sleep under the beautiful night sky like this, enjoying each other's presence as the stars twinkle in delight at such a sight. From behind Ace, the Whitebeards were busy having a merry night of drinking, being their usual noisy selves and not paying attention to Ace at all. He does not mind, since he does not trust them anyway. He rested his cheek on his right fist as he watched the moonlight reflect on the waves below him. The sea was just so beautiful, and Ace could not wait for the very day he gets to be free and sail on its waters, looking for adventure and new meaning to his life. He'd also want his brothers to sail the seas and be free just like him as well. But to do that, he must find them as soon as possible. He looked up to watch the stars and the moon. I wonder if they're looking at the same sky like me, too. With that thought, he gave a soft smile. A smile that was so rare, only the people who gained a special place deep in his heart could be the only ones permitted to see. They will find each other again.